Did CM Punk pre-plan his now infamous rant this past weekend at AEW All Out? We have an update on the location of Punk's dog Larry at the event. Plus, where was MJF when the incident was going down? We have an update on if he's going to be interviewed as a witness in the external investigation by AEW. There was one wrestler who thought the big brawl was in fact an angle being shot in the next room. Bobby Fish shoots hard on CM Punk. Thunder Rosa is out with an injury, although some people in AEW believe her injury to be suspicious. And we have backstage details on the talent meeting before Dynamite this week. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into in the world of All Elite Wrestling, and CM Punk, you just can't get out the headlines, can he? This infamous rant, the brawl with the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega, the suspension, the injury, the surgery, being stripped of the AEW World Championship, it will just never end with CM Punk being in the headlines regarding his rant in the media scrum at All Out, his injury, his brawl, everything involving Punk, his employment status with All Elite Wrestling. We've been talking about it all week, and there are even more details coming out now about the infamous rant that took place after All Out in the media scrum next to AEW President Tony Khan. A lot of people assumed Punk walking into that press conference that his big rant was off the cuff and he was frustrated, and this was months of frustration boiling over when he buried Colt Cabana and spoke about his now infamous relationship and lawsuit against Colt Cabana, being sued and then countersuing his former best friend. Of course, he spoke about the AEW EVPs, Kenny Omega, the Young Bucks, burying them, ranting about them, leading to that brawl just minutes later in his locker room. He also spoke about Hangman Page and others, and a lot of people, as I mentioned, assumed that this came off the cuff and it was just frustration boiling over. But that might not be the case, because it appears that CM Punk had been planning to say these words, these now infamous words, for a very long time. Now, of course, CM Punk started off AEW's All Out media scrum with an unexpected turn, but it's now being reported that Punk likely had what he wanted to say brewing for quite a while. According to Dave Meltzer, in today's edition of the Wrestling Observer newsletter, a source has said to Meltzer that when Punk returned from his foot injury a couple of weeks ago, he told them that the press conference after All Out was going to be interesting. Now, Punk, of course, didn't disappoint, publicly addressing his former dealings with Scott Colton, of course also known as Colt Cabana, and the tension between the two. He then pivoted over to Hangman Adam Page, saying that Page had gone into business for himself during their feud before Double or Nothing. Punk then took shots at the maturity of the Young Bucks, who he claims perpetrated the high school BS and put the company's top babyface in a bad position. After that, Punk focused back on Hangman Adam Page, disparaging the young star for being unwilling to take advice from veteran talent behind the scenes. All of Punk's rants flooded into the locker room minutes before the entire media scrum was even finished. Of course, this led to a big fight breaking out after All Out between the Young Bucks, Kenny Omega, CM Punk himself, Ace Steel. Other people involved were Christopher Daniels, Pat Buck, Michael Nakazawa, and all parties involved were suspended, with the future of Punk and Ace Steel, of course, still being up in the air as we record this video and still being in question. This is what Dave Meltzer had to say, quote, "Several wrestlers not affiliated with either side noted to us that they felt Punk and Steel had to be gone," Meltzer said. He noted that some felt Punk's comments that Page had never done anything in the business reflected poorly on AEW's history, given that Page was a former world champion and headlined 3 of the biggest pay-per-view shows in the promotion's history. Now, there's a lot to break down in all of that, clearly. I think the biggest thing, and the thing that people will be talking about the most, is the premeditation of CM Punk's comments. I said this a little bit, didn't I, in a couple of videos we did. A lot of people said when CM Punk came out and did what he did on Dynamite, right? When he came out and he called out Hangman Page, and Page wasn't going to come out because he wasn't meant to come out, and Page wasn't scheduled to come out, and CM Punk knew that, right? It was CM Punk giving a receipt in his mind's eye for what Hangman Page did in the build-up to their Double or Nothing feud. A lot of people said, but that was months ago. Why would CM Punk do that? It was months ago. Why would CM Punk do that on Dynamite when what Hangman Page did and his feud with Hangman Page was months prior? And I said at the time, because when was the time for CM Punk to do it? If CM Punk was pissed off about what Hangman Page did, think about when was the right time to do it. Hangman Page said what he said about CM Punk and maybe the Dynamite prior to Double or Nothing, or maybe a couple of weeks before that. And in CM Punk's mind's eye, he didn't have a lot of time to respond. And he thought, you know what? I'm going to get through the match at Double or Nothing. I'm going to win because I know I'm meant to win. I'm going to win the AEW World Championship. And then at the next available opportunity where I have a live microphone in my hand, I'm going to bury Hangman Adam Page. Or during this period of time, I'm going to resolve things and then I don't have to give out that receipt. The issue is Punk never truly had a time to give the receipt he wanted to, because what happened? He won the AEW World Championship at Double or Nothing. The next episode of Dynamite, he broke his foot. He dived into the crowd, he broke his foot, he wrestled a match. He then realized he'd broken his foot, and then just 2 days later on a live episode of Rampage, he had to say he was stepping away to have surgery, and an interim world champion was crowned because of that at Forbidden Door. So Punk never actually had the opportunity to deliver this receipt that he wanted to Hangman Page. So he thinks, right, I'm going to come back. He came back Quake by the Lake after that main event where Moxley defeated Chris Jericho. Comes out, cleans house. It's not until the next week, though, on the next episode of Dynamite, that Punk has a live microphone in his hand for the first time, really, since Hangman Adam Page had done what he had did. So because of that, Punk had to wait all of that period of time because he was on the shelf and he never had really that promo time where the right opportunity was there to deliver the receipt. So I said that at the time. I said that's pretty self-explanatory. But the key thing here is that during that period of time away, clearly CM Punk had been festering. CM Punk, the issue that he had with Hangman Page was building in his brain and going over and over and over and over and over, and he thought, when I come back, I'm going to deliver that receipt. The other issue is that whilst he was away, what happened? That bigger story about Colt Cabana and about possibly being moved to Ring of Honor, that started to break as well, and we started to hear more why Hangman had heat with CM Punk. It was based on the Colt Cabana stuff, and the Colt Cabana story then started to come to light even more. So again, whilst Punk's away, and this is festering in his brain, this other stuff's starting to come to light at the same time. So you've got a guy that's already pissed off, and he hears more information, he really starts to get pissed off even more, and he starts to hear even more stories about himself. So yeah, I think when he did come back, he thought, right, he's going to do what he did before. Remember, Hangman said that stuff before Double or Nothing, and Punk did nothing. Why did he do nothing? Because he knew the pay-per-view was coming, and he knew he was going to win the World Championship, and he thought, when I'm the World Champion, I can say what I want, because they're not going to fire the World Champion. They're not going to do anything to the champion. They're not going to do anything to the guy that's drawing money. And it was the same game plan. He thought, I'm going to come back. I know I'm the World Champion. I know coming out of All Out, I'm going to be the World Champion again. I'm going to wait until after All Out, until after I win the bout and I have this great performance and I'm in this position of power, and then I'm going to say what I want. And then I'm going to say what I want next to the president, because I have no issues or no concerns about my spot, because I will be holding the bout, I'm getting paid the most money in the company, and they can't do anything to me. The issue is that Punk said what he said. It was massively unprofessional, and he might have just got away with it if he wasn't injured. The fact that CM Punk is now injured, he's out for 6 to 8 months, and that big brawl happened, his position of power, like Thanos, evaporated, disappeared with just a snap of a finger, because he's out of action for a really long time now, and he's not the world champion. He's currently suspended. So CM Punk's position of power just evaporated quickly, and you do have to question. As I mentioned, I've blamed Tony Khan for a lot of this, and I'll continue to blame Tony Khan for a lot of this, because I think as a leader and as a president, as a CEO of the company, he's let this get way out of hand, way out of hand, where this could have been fixed really early on if he addressed the CM Punk Colt Cabana rumors right from the start. If he'd have got people like Hangman Page, like the Young Bucks, like Kenny Omega, and said, this isn't happening, CM Punk doesn't want Colt Cabana to be fired, he doesn't want Colt Cabana to be let go. You're assuming that I wasn't going to renew Colt Cabana's contract because of the history of CM Punk, but that's not the case. It didn't come from Phil himself. Tony Khan could have addressed that, and none of this would have happened, but he didn't, and now he's in the position that he is in. And I would say CM Punk was massively unprofessional in what he did at that press conference, and now he's in no position of power whatsoever. And to be premeditated and be planning what he was going to say, that's some very, very pro wrestling political stuff. Now, again, from Punk's perspective, he might feel like, well, what else can I do? People are saying stuff about me in the biggest and best forum possible. I'm going to say stuff about them. However, I would say it probably went a lot better in CM Punk's head than it did in reality. Now, in a bit of a lighter subject, but it's still about this fight that happened after All Out, CM Punk's dog Larry. We've heard about Larry, his position in this fight, where he actually was. He was actually in the room as well with all of these people. Now, the fight involving Punk and the Elite has reportedly featured, well, pretty much everything, hasn't it? We've got chairs being thrown, Kenny Omega being bitten. Some have suggested that doors were kicked down, or possibly, not kicked down, but barged in. And now CM Punk's poor dog Larry also reportedly witnessed the whole thing and was led out of the room safely by Kenny Omega. We spoke about this earlier today. Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select also reported this, but Dave Meltzer, in the latest edition of the Wrestling Observer newsletter, has also provided some details as to the K9's location during the brawl. Meltzer provided more context as to why Larry was in Punk's locker room at the time of the brawl, and most importantly, who was looking after him. This is what Meltzer had to say, quote, "In the room at the time was also Lucy Guy, who of course is the wife of Ace Steel, real name Chris Guy. She had a broken foot and couldn't move well, and there was a fight now breaking out right in front of her. I believe she was there taking care of Larry, Punk's dog, who actually got loose inside the arena and headed to the ring in front of fans just hours earlier, just before the show went on the air. Now, Punk's dog did in fact appear before the live crowd in Chicago before All Out began. There was videos and pictures on social media of Larry running around ringside and CM Punk being at the top of the entrance ramp to collect his dog at the Now Arena. As of recording right now, as I mentioned, there's no definitive word on the fate of CM Punk or Ace Steel, who reportedly threw the chair at Nick Jackson and bit Kenny Omega during the brawl. We know that the Elite are suspended. We know that everyone involved is suspended, but we don't know if Punk or Ace Steel are going to be terminated. We don't know when it comes to that. But it does add more details into what we've spoken about before, that we do know that Ace Steel's wife was in the room at the time of the brawl, the locker room, CM Punk's locker room, and reportedly from Ace Steel's perspective, that is why he, by all accounts, lost it, is because this was happening right in front of his wife, a brawl going on, and his wife's got a broken foot, and she's only in there meant to be looking after a guy's dog, and potentially she could get caught in the firing line of wrestlers arguing over wrestling BS. I would be a bit unhappy too. However, it doesn't justify biting someone or pulling their hair or throwing a chair at someone, especially when you're a producer in the company. It's all a big mess, isn't it? Now, there is also, there are so many aspects of this, there are so many different details, but there has been the latest update when it comes to this brawl about where was MJF involved in all of this? Where was MJF? MJF may have actually witnessed the entire thing, because again, Meltzer in today's Wrestling Observer newsletter has pointed out that in addition to Chief Legal Officer Mega Parek, none other than the newly returned Maxwell Jacob Friedman was also present during the scuffle. Now the company, this is where it gets really critical, I think, the company have hired an independent firm to conduct its own investigations of the events in hopes of finding truth of the matter. The fight allegedly, again it did, but allegedly involved CM Punk, producer Ace Steel, Matt Jackson, Nick Jackson, Kenny Omega, Brandon Cutler, Michael Nakazawa, and Christopher Daniels. Pat Buck was also in there as well. It's been said that some of the aforementioned employees were trying to break up the brawl, but it's still unclear as to what role every individual played in that room at the time. Now, rumors have been circulating for days about what occurred, but as of now, it really is impossible to say what is the true events, what actually happened. Nobody really knows. There are several really differing versions of events going on right now. Now, according to Meltzer, we have really the newest and latest details as to what this external investigation is going to look like and what their role is and how they're going to investigate this incident. The recently hired independent firm is conducting video interviews with every single person who was present. The hope is to speak to, quote, neutral parties who witnessed the whole encounter, including MJF and Mega Parek, in order to get to the bottom of things. In the meantime, everyone involved in the fight has been suspended, likely pending the results of the investigation. Meltzer has stated that legal action is still being considered, though it's unknown by whom and in what form. Now, that's critical there as well, because according to some reports, not everyone, but according to some reports, CM Punk was allegedly threatening legal action during the fight itself against the likes of Omega and the Young Bucks. So it could be a case where CM Punk is actually considering legal action. It could be a case where AEW is considering legal action against these people brawling in their arena. It could be a case of Nick Jackson and Matt Jackson, right? Nick Jackson's got a black eye. He could be considering legal action as well. And if you do have neutral parties, they can really fill in the blanks, it must be said, because if I'm this external group and I'm doing these video interviews trying to find out what happened, of course you speak to CM Punk, you speak to Ace Steel, they're going to give their side of events, and we've already heard their side of events, that the Bucks kicked the door down, Matt Jackson threw the first punch at CM Punk, and Ace Steel then got involved when Matt Jackson was attacking everyone, and he got involved with Nick Jackson. We know that side of things. We then know the Elite side of things, and that's CM Punk threw the first punch. They didn't kick the door down or anything like that. They walked in. CM Punk was the aggressor. All this kind of stuff. Kenny Omega was just trying to remove the dog from the room, and then he was trying to pull Nick Jackson off of Punk or something like that, which led to Ace Steel attacking him. Right? There's so many different conflicting versions of this story. If you've then got the neutral parties like MJF, like Mega Parek, who of course is the chief legal officer, so from a legal point of view she'll know exactly what's happening, and frankly her being there is an indication that the Elite, Omega and the Bucks knew something could go down, so they wanted to have a witness. It's smart by them to do that from a HR and legal perspective. They took Mega there to ensure there was someone there to witness what happened. So they've already got a witness on the record that they can lean on, I think, which is smart by them. What they're going to do is interview Punk's side, the Bucks side, or the Elite side, which is like this, and then they're going to interview the neutral side in the middle, and then piece together everything that happened. And then, depending on the outcome of that investigation, they might decide to terminate Phil Brooks' contract with All Elite Wrestling, and maybe Ace Steel as well. Of course, CM Punk, as I mentioned, his position of power, I believe, in AEW is very, very frail now, considering he's no champion, he's injured, he can't do anything for 8 months anyway. So he's as good as done until, midway through 2023 at this point. And we don't even know how long his contract goes at this point too. So I don't know what's going to happen with CM Punk next in all actuality. Now, there was a wrestler, this is how wild it is as well, according to Dave Meltzer in the Wrestling Observer newsletter, and I must say, I know people don't like Meltzer, or I know people think he's this, that, and the other when it comes to AEW. As I've said, when he talks AEW, you tend to have to, listen to him about AEW, because chances are he's spoken to everyone involved in AEW. He's probably spoken to Omega, the Bucks, Tony Khan, and others. But according to Meltzer in the latest Wrestling Observer newsletter, one AEW star who was actually in the room next door to the locker room in which the fight occurred was under the impression that an angle was actually being filmed. Once he went to check out what was going on, he quickly realized that it was a real situation. Now, again, we don't know who that is. And I could speculate, and I don't know, but isn't it interesting that people suddenly say MJF witnessed the whole thing? Why on earth would MJF be witness to that? It didn't happen in the hallway. It happened in a locker room, CM Punk's locker room. So why would MJF be there? He wouldn't have been talking to Punk, because Punk was in there with Ace Steel by all accounts, and Punk had just got treatment for his injury, his torn tricep, bicep, whatever it is. Also, Punk was busted open. He just got some treatment for that. I believe, and I don't know if this be accurate, and this is just me speculating here, I believe what could have happened is that MJF was in the next room, heard all this going on, again, assumed it was an angle, then left the room, went to go in the locker room or have a look what was going on, and then saw it. That's how he saw what was happening, or an element of what was happening. Because why else would he be there? Why else would he be there? We don't know. we don't know what else has been going on. Now, Bobby Fish... We spoke about Bobby Fish earlier today, and how he ended things with AEW and the reasons why. Bobby Fish doesn't like it, CM Punk by all accounts. And I can't... Some of the stuff he said is pretty wild. So he did an interview with Steve Fall of NBC Sports, and he provided more insight why he's not a fan of CM Punk. He said, quote, and this is quite a long quote, so bear with me here. He said, "There is no challenge. Phil is not a bad pro wrestler, but what Phil is not is a martial artist. I've been doing martial arts since I was 8 years old, so I take a lot of pride in it. It's something that I do until the day I die. There are other people within pro wrestling, Bryan Danielson, Kyle O'Reilly, people that train, they put that into their pro wrestling. You do that because pro wrestling is made up in a way that we get to to bring a little piece of ourselves and add in what we want to do because so many variables are controlled. You can paint with whatever color you want. Choose a color that you have in your toolbox. If you don't have blue, you're not painting with blue. CM Punk is not a martial artist. He went on pay-per-view and showed the world that he is not a martial artist. He is a pro wrestler. Go out, tackle, drop down, leapfrog, give it again. All good. In that lane, he has talent. When it comes to martial arts, you're insulting the audience's intelligence because we're supposed to be creating an atmosphere where you suspend your disbelief. It's insulting for you as one of my co-workers or peers. As a martial artist, you're asking me to go out and sow and put over your bunk-ass martial arts. It's insulting to the audience. It's an insult to me. Now, Fish and Punk wrestled on the October 27 edition of AEW Dynamite, which we spoke about, and we did talk earlier today that Fish was unhappy with Punk's attitude after the match. This is what Fish had to say, quote, "I'm working for AEW, they're paying my check. You ask me to put my shoulders down for Phil Brooks, I go out and do it. Interestingly enough, there was a little whatever in the match we had, and after the match, Phil was it begins with C, I can't say it on this video. Frankly, as a martial artist, I went out and laid my shoulders down for you. You should be grateful that I did, because on national TV, if I decided that I wanted to effing haku your ass, I could have, because you're that little of a threat in my world. I'm not John Jones or Anderson Silva, but I've been doing martial arts long enough to where I can hold you like a wet nap, Phil Brooks. You can be, again, see, after, for a mistake you made, it doesn't wear well. Not to mention, the move he finished me with, it's not his, it's Kenta's. Phil, you took a man's finishing move. Anyone who knows pro wrestling, that's effed up. You weren't even decent enough to change the name." Now, he might be right in a lot of what he said there, Bobby Fish, right? CM Punk's MMA background is well documentedly bad. You know, go watch those UFC fights, but it does come across as just sour grapes. Get over it. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter because I could beat Phil Brooks up if I wanted to because I'm a martial artist. It's a work. It's a work, Bobby Fish. And if you don't like him because he was a douche afterwards, fair enough. You just say that. But don't be like, oh, he was rude to me and I could beat him if I wanted to. Oh, whatever. I just looked at him and went, oh, whatever. Anyway, Thunder Rosa is currently out of action with an injury. Now, the injury she does have is legitimate. However, it hasn't stopped people backstage having some suspicions about the timing of her announcement that she was injured. Dave Meltzer in the Wrestling Observer newsletter was able to confirm that Rosa is indeed injured. There are some behind the scenes who believe the timing of her announcement was suspect, as it came only hours after being told that she would drop the championship to Toni Storm at AEW's All Out event. Rosa reportedly feared that wrestling another match would further aggravate the injury and cause her to require surgery. However, according to Meltzer, it is reportedly the type of injury that many wrestlers would work through to at least drop the championship before taking time off. At the same time, Meltzer noted most doctors would likely not recommend working through the injury. Amidst rumors of friction between Rosa and other wrestlers backstage, some have made comments about the suspicious timing of the injury announcement, including seemingly Storm herself. At the post-show media scrum following her all-out victory, Storm spoke about becoming the interim champion, saying, quote, "It's not ideal, but Thunder Rosa says she's injured. Okay, when she says she's not injured, she can come back and lose to me, and that'll be the end of that." Now, Rosa been working hurt since winning the World Championship, the AEW Women's World Championship, back in March on Dynamite. She recently detailed her struggles, saying that she had been injured, saying she couldn't feel her legs when she got out of the ring, but I have to get out there, I couldn't let people down. Look, I have no doubt she's injured. I'm not going to come on here and say she's not injured. If the belief is she could have worked through the injury, it doesn't sound great. And the timing of it is more than suspicious. You're going to lose the World Championship at All Out. I don't think I can wrestle at All Out. I've got an injury that I've been working through. You've worked through it since March. I think it's just a little bit too bad at this point. It's one more match. I believe she could have dropped the championship if she really wanted to. She didn't want to. Now, is she injured? Does she need to take time off? Absolutely, 100%. But if the general feeling was she could have worked through the match, or how many matches did we see cut short All Out? She didn't even have to take bumps. She could have gone out there, smoke and mirrors, Toni Storm could have won the championship. But she decided not to. And I think that speaks volumes. Finally, of course, there was a talent meeting before Dynamite this past Wednesday. We have more details about that once again from Dave Meltzer in the latest edition of the Wrestling Observer newsletter. He said, quote, "Moxley, Jericho, and Bryan Danielson called a meeting in Buffalo on September 7th before the show started. One person stated that it was the best backstage meeting that the wrestlers had ever had and that they realized there was brand damage done that they have to overcome. Moxley's promo of wanting to be handed the ball and become a legend and take that shot even when we're now in the fourth quarter of the game and behind did have its sense of reality to it. Even before the meeting, we were told that the talent arrived, they knew they had a show to do, and it was business as usual. The Observer report also mentioned that it was stressed to talent not to air grievances in public, although the general sentiment after the meeting adjourned was one of wanting to put what happened on Sunday night behind them and focus on producing quality shows moving forward. Additionally, most AEW talent ended Wednesday pleased with how strong Dynamite turned out and excited for where things go from here, although others noted being depressed with how everything had gone down over the past week. AEW will see this unpredictable week end tonight on AEW Rampage on TNT. The main event of the show will see Claudio Castagnoli defend the Ring of Honor World Championship against Dax Harwood of FTR. I thought Moxley's promo was great on Dynamite, I really did, and it did have a sense of reality to it, no doubt about it, and as I've said a million times, Jon Moxley, he's the AEW MVP this year. Put the belt. I don't think they're going to put the belt back on him. I think they're going to put it on MJF. But he deserves a ton of credit in a time where people talk about locker room leaders and this, that, and the other. Jon Moxley's a locker room leader. You might not like him, you might not like his style of wrestling, or don't think he's good wrestling, but he has been nothing but quality for this company this year. Coming back from what he came back from, addiction, to do what he's done and continue to do it. He's meant to be off at this point. He's meant to have time off. He came back for the company, and I think he deserves a ton of credit for that. Nevertheless, guys, be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. Let me know your thoughts on today's continuing AEW news. I promise we will do more videos on other news in WWE and Impact Wrestling, but there's just so much going on at the moment in AEW, so I'm doing my best to cover all of it. So be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.